There are moments in entertainment that start off routine and unremarkable, but unravel into something far more consequential than anyone behind the cameras could have anticipated. And that night on The Late Show with Stephen Colbert, when Ralph Macchio, decades removed from his crane kick glory and now revered as both nostalgic icon and surprising comeback figure thanks to Cobra Kai, walked onto the stage, no one, not even the most attuned producer or eagle-eyed social media handler, could have predicted how quickly the familiar comfort of late-night banter would descend into a layered, uncomfortable clash of egos, expectations, and unspoken resentments. For Macchio had long grown tired of being boxed into the neat, eternal role of Daniel LaRusso, a character he loved, but also one that had come to define him in a way that often felt more like confinement than celebration. And Colbert, brilliant, biting, and known for his clever skewering of public personas, was precisely the kind of host whose sharp wit could provoke even the most media-trained guest into unexpected territory. So when Ralph sat down and the segment opened with the usual applause and warm acknowledgement of his enduring presence in pop culture, things seemed on track, but it was in the tone, in the precise phrasing of Colbert's questions, where the unease began to build, subtle at first, like a breeze before the storm, as Stephen joked that Macchio must feel like a permanent senior in the high school of America's nostalgia, to which Ralph chuckled outwardly, but inwardly recognized the slight for what it was, the first of several barbs disguised as compliments, and though he answered with grace, explaining how Cobra Kai had allowed him to explore Daniel's adult psyche in a meaningful way, it was clear that Colbert wasn't interested in depth that night, only irony. And his next jab, which framed Macchio's entire second wave of fame as a kind of self-aware, Netflix-fed fan fiction marathon, drew laughter from the crowd but caused Ralph's eyes to flicker with something between disbelief and restraint, the kind of restraint built over years of Hollywood politics, of playing nice in interviews, of letting people laugh at the idea of a grown man still being known for something he did at 17, and the energy on set shifted as Colbert, sensing the tension but not shying away, pushed further by invoking Ralph's absence from major films in the 90s and early 2000s, framing it as a meditative disappearance, before offhandedly asking if he had been waiting out the age gap to play Mr. Miyagi himself, a line that, while clearly intended as edgy humor, struck a nerve so deeply that Macchio sat back in his chair, blinked slowly, and responded with a level of poise that surprised even the host, telling Stephen that legacy is not something to be laughed at, and that the industry's fixation with mockery has robbed many artists of their dignity. A statement which hushed the audience not because it was harsh, but because it was raw, vulnerable, the kind of unscripted authenticity late night rarely sees. And Colbert, rather than diffusing the moment or acknowledging its sincerity, leaned into the discomfort with a smirk and a line about the martial arts of media being mostly about rolling with the punches, to which Ralph replied, not with anger but with stillness, a pause heavy with implication before he calmly unhooked his microphone, placed it on the desk, and stood, telling the audience that he came to speak, not to be reduced, not to play a character in someone else's comedy bit. And while Colbert made a last-minute attempt at levity, something about wax on, walk off. The audience didn't laugh, and Macchio, without raising his voice, walked off stage, past the curtain, past the blinking lights of stage managers, out into the night, where the silence felt more honest than anything spoken inside. The studio, and as the cameras cut to an abrupt commercial, the internet was already ablaze, clips circulating with a speed-only scandal, or truth, can summon, with debates erupting across platforms, half the world defending Ralph for his composure and unwillingness to be a punchline, while others accused him of lacking a sense of humor, not understanding the late-night format, missing the point, as if entertainment was only ever about performance, never about personhood. But the longer the discussion continued, the more people began to question the ethics of satire, the responsibilities of hosts, the fine line between clever and cruel. And while Colbert addressed the issue the next night with a vague nod to miscommunications and artistic differences, Macchio remained largely silent, giving one statement days later about the need for dialogue that respects artists as more than artifacts. a sentiment that reverberated through an industry that had grown too comfortable turning trauma into trend, nostalgia into novelty, with other performers citing his stance as inspiration to push back when humor became humiliation. And in the weeks that followed, Macchio found himself approached by writers and directors who had seen not a tantrum, but a man reclaiming his voice, resulting in roles that no longer asked him to nod at the past, but instead to break new ground, portraying characters as flawed, dignified, weathered, and real, while Colbert, reflecting privately though never admitting publicly, began adjusting his tone, letting more space into his interviews, becoming less the puppeteer and more the partner in conversation, as if subconsciously, acknowledging that something had shifted permanently in the dynamic between host and guest, truth and timing, and that clash, though messy and uncomfortable, became a kind of cultural mirror, reflecting how little room we leave for people to grow beyond the parts of themselves that we once decided were most convenient for our entertainment. And in this, the Macchio-Colbert incident outgrew both men, becoming not just a moment of drama on a show, but a touchstone for a broader conversation about identity, performance, and the simple revolutionary act of saying no when the world expects you to smile and nod.